Amagi Metals, where financial freedom is yours.
Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
All right, so did you want to explain a little bit about why do you think investing in gold and silver is a good idea right now?
Yeah, I think it's very important to purchase gold and silver and other precious metals as a preservation of wealth. I usually don't like to use the word invest because when I think of invest, I think of buying low, waiting for the price to go up, and then selling and profiting from the difference. But for gold and silver, I purchase it more as a form of savings in the hopes that I never have to use it, and in the hopes that if I do have to use it, it's for something like a rainy day. Now, if you look at what's happening in the world from a political perspective and an economic perspective, I think you'll see that it's important to preserve your wealth in a commodity or sound money such as gold and silver. If you look at something like the dollar or the euro, it's controlled by a small number of politicians, and those politicians can expand the money supply and reduce your purchasing power. And they are doing it year after year, and it's known as inflation. And and they usually do it to please their own constituents through either welfare programs, subsidies, or warfare. And so it's in their interest to print more money and reduce your standard of living and create inflation, which makes the money, if you keep your money in the dollars or euro or any other fiat currency, it devalues year after year. Whereas gold, over the last 2,000 or 3,000 years, has maintained its value. The same wage 100 years ago was a tenth of an ounce of gold today. And if you look at the average wage today, it's still about a tenth of an ounce of gold.
Those are some very interesting points. And if people are interested in purchasing gold and silver, how do you see that people should probably go about doing that?
Yeah, it really depends on what your mindset is. I usually recommend to people who are starting to buy precious metals to preserve their wealth to purchase physical bullion as opposed to ETFs or mining stocks or anything like that, because it's tangible, it's in your hand, nobody else can control it. It's something that you can hide, wherever you want, and if you need it, it's right there for you to grab and liquidate or anything like that. So I really recommend physical bullion, and you can, of course, buy it from Amagi Metals. You can buy it from a local coin shop. There are many different options where you can buy gold and silver.
I know people often ask, how can you store precious metals? Because you probably don't want it just laying around in your house.
Exactly. So I've heard many different stories of how people have stored their gold and silver in the past, and some of them sound kind of silly. But I would start off by saying, don't tell anyone that you own gold or silver. That's your best protection. If you tell people, oh, I have 1,000 ounces of gold in my basement, then obviously word can get out and open risk to theft. So that's the first step. Don't tell anyone. The second step is it really depends on how much wealth you have, how much gold and silver you want to purchase. If it's a few ounces of gold every 6 months, then you could put it in a safe. You could put it in a safety deposit box. Some people bury it in their backyard. I don't usually recommend it. Some people hide it under their mattress or put it in books. I usually don't recommend that either, because you can forget where it is. Other people can find it. And there are stories of that, decades later, of people uncovering gold and silver from someone's backyard or in the wilderness. So, I would recommend a safe or safety deposit box. Of course, if you're starting to purchase millions of dollars worth of gold and silver, then you want to increase the size of your safe. You may want to think about storing it at a external location in a vault, possibly in other countries around the world, just so that you diversify your holdings. So it really depends on the scope of your holdings. If you're just starting out, keep it in a safety deposit box. Once you start getting much larger, then that's when you start looking at storing it in other countries and in large vaults with that have physical security guards walking around protecting that gold and silver.
I know at Amaji Metals you actually sell gold and silver in Bitcoin. Did you want to talk a little bit about that and why you decided to incorporate Bitcoin in the purchase of gold and silver?
Yeah, we started accepting Bitcoin in 2012. And at one point, we were the largest Bitcoin retail business in the world. We're still pretty high up there just because a lot of people, early adopters of Bitcoin, understand the importance of sound money. And that's actually why I got interested in Bitcoin. It's taken me about 2 years to understand it a lot better than I did 2 years ago. And I still say that I'm learning a lot about it. But I think its technology behind it is revolutionary. I think that it's more revolutionary than the internet, and it's changing the world as we speak. And it's not just the currency aspect of Bitcoin, but it's also the technology behind it, the decentralizing technology, which is changing the way we look at government, the internet, and business. And so because of that, and because I think the technology behind it gives it value. It makes there's a finite supply of it. It makes it a commodity, and I think that in the future it will be looked at as a form of sound money, and I think that it will replace the dollar's function as money. So I'm really happy that we started accepting it, and I consider ourselves an early adopter of cryptocurrency.
And I'd like to get into that, possibly Bitcoin replacing the dollar as money. But first, I wanted to discuss a little bit about gold and silver and then possibly their relation to cryptocurrencies. I know you've said in a podcast that gold and silver have a track record, but cryptocurrencies don't have much of a track record. So did you want to expand on why you are so confident in cryptocurrencies surviving?
Oh, yeah. So it can be a long topic, but if you look at it's open source, and so anyone in the world can contribute to the open source code and make it better and improve it. So the interesting thing about Bitcoin is that it's like the English language, where every year it evolves. You can add a couple of words and you throw out old words that people don't use. So on the margin, it's changing. Bitcoin's the same way. As our needs change, as more people adopt it, as we change the way we do commerce, Bitcoin evolves and adapts to meet those needs as well. And it can adopt new innovations. And so it makes it highly adaptable and very revolutionary in that perspective, in that it can evolve as we evolve. And that's why I think that it's going to be around for a long time. I don't think you can consider it money right now just because of its volatility. And of course, it's still gaining widespread adoption. But I think we're moving in that direction. And I think a lot of people have always seen gold and silver as money. And I think that for goods, there can be a division of labor, just like there is for humans. And so I think Bitcoin could replace gold and silver as a function of money, but I think gold and silver will always be around as a storage of wealth.
As you've said, gold and silver will always be a store of wealth, but I know you've said before that gold and silver might not always be considered money. Did you want to discuss a little bit about that? Why do you see that gold and silver's role as money could change?
Yeah, I think that is because of the innovations behind Bitcoin are far superior to gold and silver when it comes to looking at money. And for example, I can send any money in the world anywhere instantly with low or no transaction costs with Bitcoin. If I were to um, do business with somebody in India or South Africa or China, and I wanted to pay with gold, I would have to ship that gold to them, and it would take days for them to receive it. And then they would have to verify it, and then they would be able to send me the goods or the service. Whereas with Bitcoin, I can send it on a Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. They receive it a Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. And the transaction fees are very low. I can send I can send any fraction that I want. I can send a millionth of a penny. And with gold and silver, it's very difficult to send those types of denominations. So Bitcoin also helps with things like micropayments. And so I think with our, as we've evolved, we are now we want things now society. Things happen 24/7 around the world, and commerce must keep up with that. And I don't think gold and silver have the ability to do that. But of course, I think that Bitcoin does.
And what is your opinion on like multiple cryptocurrencies? I know there are a lot out there. Do you see Bitcoin being the one that will continue to be most used, or what is your perspective on multiple cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, so it's funny because I've talked to a few people in the Bitcoin space, and they're big fans of the free market, and then they frown upon other cryptocurrencies. They say, "Oh, there must only be one, and that one is Bitcoin." It's I think a silly concept because I think other cryptocurrencies have a function. I think they're very important. They We're in a space, a very unknown space right now, and Bitcoin, I would say, is not the end all and be all. And people are looking at the Bitcoin technology and innovating on it to provide services and innovations to niche markets with those cryptocurrencies, and they're trying to solve answer or solve questions like what is the best cryptocurrency? What is the best way to transmit cryptocurrencies? How much information should be stored on each cryptocurrency? What are the like right now, Bitcoin is used for proof of work, but other cryptocurrencies can be used for things like proof of existence, proof of bandwidth, which have different uses. So I think that when a new cryptocurrency comes out, it opens people's eyes in different niche markets. For example, here in Colorado, we have Potcoin, which helps people purchase pot from dispensaries, and because the dispensaries don't have access to banks or opening bank accounts, they are now exposed to cryptocurrencies. However, if there is one that has a revolutionary innovation, Bitcoin can adopt it instantly. So I don't think that Bitcoin's going to go away. I think that compared to other cryptocurrencies, it has the largest infrastructure. It can adapt and adopt other innovations from other cryptocurrencies.
Now, I wanted to move back to what you were talking about before about cryptocurrencies possibly replacing the dollar someday. I know I am, many others are, and I think you've talked about this before, that we're pretty critical about the central banking system right now, the Federal Reserve. Do you see that cryptocurrencies could possibly liberate us from the central banking system?
Oh, absolutely. And I think if you look at what's happening today, we have so many disruptive technologies that are just crushing these massive monopolies. And for example, Uber is breaking the taxi monopoly in different cities. Now we have Bitcoin, which is breaking the government's monopoly on money. And I think that its adoption is growing exponentially, and more people are seeing how easy it is to use Bitcoin as people are writing software to make it easier to use. And I think it's people are going to understand that it's a more viable option than the dollar. And if you look at the antiquated banking system, it wasn't meant for the internet. The way the banking system works right now, the way people send wires and whatnot, it wasn't really meant for the internet. But now we do have something that is meant for the internet, which allows us to transact with people that we don't know in other countries without having to have a third party that we must ask for permission to be able to work or do business with these people. So but not only that, the Bitcoin technology is changing the way we look at the internet. Right now, we have 5 ISPs, internet service providers, that can and the 90, like Comcast, Time Warner, Verizon, and a couple others. But now with Bitcoin technology, we centralize the internet and create competing internets. So Bitcoin technology isn't just breaking the money monopoly, but it's breaking the monopoly on the internet. It's breaking many different monopolies based on services, and a lot of them that revolve around the internet. So it's quite spectacular to see these disruptive technologies that are making the world a better place.
And I know a lot would argue, and I've even argued this before, that it doesn't seem like scarcity by itself equals value. So what is your perspective on that? Because it seems like Bitcoin by itself doesn't really have any intrinsic value. It's only that there's a finite supply of Bitcoins that people think is valuable. So what is your perspective on that?
Yeah, this is a common misnomer that people have, is that in economics, there's intrinsic value, and that's actually not the case. One of the last big proponents of value having intrinsic value is Karl Marx with his labor theory of value. But what we really see, and as you said, scarcity doesn't necessarily create value. There is value is subjective, and Karl Menger showed that back in the 1800s. And so and just like gold doesn't have intrinsic value. It has subjective value. However, it does have uses in society. It's uses as jewelry. It's used in cell phones and laptops, and silver is used in dentistry. And so precious metals have wide variety of uses in industry and jewelry. And so people say, oh, well, what about Bitcoin? And Bitcoin, I think, has a lot of different uses as well. It solves a math problem that's never been solved before, which prevents people from double spending, which also prevents people from counterfeiting or stopping information from being counterfeited. So, and allows people to transmit that information in a decentralized way. So you don't have to have a central authority like a bank or PayPal or an ISP or a central server. And that technology is revolutionary. And that technology is what makes Bitcoin so important. And so because of its uses, its ability to break these monopolies, to decentralize the way we look at money and the internet and central functions such as PayPal and Facebook. Right now you have to connect to a central server to connect to Facebook. And the NSA has access to that central server. Well, if you apply Bitcoin technology to Facebook, you can decentralize that so there are no central servers, so that people can't hack your information, so companies can't collect your data. And people are working on applying that technology to all these different systems. So because that technology is so revolutionary, there is a finite supply of Bitcoin based on this technology, and that's what gives Bitcoin value. And it's funny because Bitcoin's actually two things. It's the protocol and it's the currency. And the protocol is what is the revolutionary technology. And unfortunately, the creator named both Bitcoin. You should have named them two different things, but there's the protocol, that technology, and that's what's revolutionary. And then there's the finite supply of currency on that protocol. And that's what gives that currency value.
All right. Well, to wrap up, did you want to share with the viewers your view on possibly, I know it's probably different for each person and this is more of a personal question, but like, what is your perspective on how much of their portfolio people should allocate towards Bitcoin, gold, and silver?
Yeah, well, for gold and silver, I would say about 20%. That's my recommendation. That's a good starting point to preserve your wealth, to have that savings for a rainy day. So, but as for Bitcoin, that would have to depend on your own comfort level and your understanding of Bitcoin. Usually what I recommend to people is just to buy $20 worth. See how it works. See how amazing it is. And then go from there. Because I think once you start understanding how powerful it is, one day soon you will have all of your money, your liquid money, like the money that you have in your bank, in Bitcoin rather than dollars. So that would be entirely up to what your fiat savings are, I suppose. But yeah, so I just recommend buy $20 of Bitcoin and then go from there. As for gold and silver, I recommend 20%. And like you said, that's a personal preference, but I'm very skeptical of the dollar and political whim. So mine might be higher than what other people recommend. I know that other people recommend anywhere between 10 and 30%.
All right. Well, Stephen Macaskill, thank you once again for joining us. And before we let you go, do you want to share with the viewers where they can find you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So you can find our website at amagimetals.com. That's AMAGI metals.com. Our Twitter handle's Amagi Metals as well. And we have all kinds of features on our website like market alerts, so you can get a text message or an email when the price of gold or other commodities such as Bitcoin go up or down or over a certain value of your choice. So please visit our website. We have lots of great content and cool features. And thank you so much for having me, Elijah.
Well, it was a pleasure. And did you want to share any last thoughts with our viewers?
Yeah, I think that we are on the cusp of the largest nonviolent human revolution we've ever seen. And that is because of these technologies. We have 3D printing, we have Bitcoin, and I think that the next few years are going to be more disruptive in our lives than the last 20 years. So I recommend doing research, finding ways to innovate and make the world a better place, and strap in for the wild ride we're about to have.